Yes, President Bush has committed many impeachable offenses. I think my opening remarks demonstrated that. He has issued executive orders that has the force and effect of law. That's an impeachable offense. He is not authorized by our Constitution to issue laws. Now, I have to clarify some of the things I said about the executive orders. Some of those executive orders have been in existence prior to President Bush, but he signed them, and he, based on what he's been doing lately, is probably the most likely president in history to exercise some of those executive orders. This man has to be impeached in order to preserve our freedoms. The Patriot Act, he pushed and pushed and pushed to get it approved. And I am ashamed to say that not a member of Congress, not a single member of Congress, including this one, read the Patriot Act before it was signed. It was laid out in front of them, and with a great deal of pressure from their corrupt party leaders, they signed that bill. President Bush demanded it. He's demanded other bills that have been just as threatening to our freedoms, and put great pressures on members of Congress to pass those bills. That has to be stopped. We have to impeach this man to let these people know that they cannot do that to our freedoms.
Okay, thank you. Conrad Burns.
President Bush, like all of us, took an oath. Took an oath to protect this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Let's talk about the Patriot Act. Let's talk about jobs for young people and what we've done here at Montana State University. Let's talk about the opportunities that's out in the tech world right now that wasn't here 18 years ago, wasn't even here 10 years ago. We changed the law. We called it a little EPSCoR law so that we got more money and resources so that we could do it. But let's talk about the Patriot Act. You have not given up one freedom. Not one freedom under this Patriot Act that you didn't have before, unless you're a terrorist or a suspected terrorist. Wait, hold the phone now, hold the phone. Now this is serious. You've got to understand what we're talking about here. Or unless you are affiliated with the mafia, or unless you're affiliated with drug kingpins. The Patriot Act was only extended to terrorism because, and those people who would want to go against that, maybe we could call that. But nonetheless, now, if you repeal it, the wall goes back up between the FBI and the CIA and the DIA, the Defense Intelligence. They cannot connect the dots if the walls go back up. And the Meth Control Act is in the Patriot Act. There is consequences, folks, in the security and our ability to protect you and every American that's in this country. It is one of those tools. Thank you.
May I respond?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Burns. Before the debate got underway tonight, members from our audience here submitted questions for the candidates, and you'll have 2 minutes to respond to these questions, no rebuttals. The first question will be for Stan Jones in our rotation. It's about the budget deficit, and the audience member says we as taxpayers are spending millions of dollars per day just to pay interest in the deficit. Give us a practical example of how each of you will act to reduce the deficit. Stan Jones, excuse me, 2 minutes.
Well, that's easy for me. Eliminate the unconstitutional Department of Education, eliminate the unconstitutional Department of Energy, eliminate the unconstitutional Housing and Urban Development, eliminate the unconstitutional Health and Welfare, eliminate all of the unconstitutional agencies and programs in the federal government, and eliminate the ability for the federal government to pass laws that have enough money to bribe the state legislatures to pass laws that the federal government doesn't think that they can pass constitutionally. That makes our state government grow. If we comply with the Constitution, we would not have a deficit. And I just don't understand how people can take an oath of office and swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States knowing that they will not, knowing that they're going to be outside of the law of the Constitution. They are outlaws.
2 minutes response.
There's only one way to deal with the deficit. Grow the economy and control spending. The last 2 years, we have reduced discretionary spending. Now, that is the part of the budget that we have some control over, the discretionary part. The non-discretionary is troubling. But we have brought down the spending on the discretionary funds in the last 2 years. And we continue with the tax cuts of 2001, 2, and 3 have energized an economy that we're continually to grow the economy. That's the way you take care of the deficit. And that's the only way you can do it. Now, we didn't ask for 911. We didn't ask for Katrina or the Gulf Coast. We didn't ask for the war on terror. But those things were dealt with by other administrations too. We have accumulated data, and then we grew through it. We always grew through it. But you grow the economy, control your spending, and that's the way you take care of the deficit. Right now, the money's coming into the National Treasury is about 17% more than we had estimated when we went through the budget debate last spring. So the economy continues to grow. Look in Montana. Montana with a 3.5 or a 3.6 unemployment. More people owning their homes now than in the history of the state, and more people working than any time in the history of the state. Now, there are some areas that have not enjoyed that growth in the economy. But that's where this university comes in, and most of them are in heavy agricultural areas. I will tell you, you wouldn't have a plant science building down here doing outstanding research. And there's going to be some more terrific things happen on this campus.
Time comes.
That's what you got to do to grow it. Thank you very much.
Jon Tester.
Thanks, Gene. I guess I would start with no bid contracts in Iraq. I think that's kind of wild. I think I would please, because I got to get through these because there's a lot. Negotiations of Medicare Part D for prescription drugs. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, negotiate for a pickup when I go buy one. We ought to be negotiating but that's what happens when you get big pharmaceutical companies that are writing bills. You know, the fact is you need to have people back there that have experience in balancing a checkbook and can set priorities. I've been able to balance a checkbook in the private sector and in the public sector. My opponent, the one on the far right, has not been able to do that in either occasion. I will tell you that when it comes to funding for Montana, we took the third biggest cut in FY05 in that discretionary funding. Out of 13 subcommittee chairs, Senator Burns is ranked 10th as far as getting dollars to this state out of the 13 for critical projects, critical research projects for this university and other universities in places like the McLaughlin Center in Great Falls. It's time, quite frankly, that we spend the money wiser, that we prioritize better, and we start looking out for middle-class folks first. The people sitting in this audience right now, the small businesses, the working families, the kids are trying to go to college and improve their lives and their quality of lives. But the fact is that's not the people who have control back in Washington, D.C. right now. Jack Abramoff and his cronies back in Washington, D.C. on K Street, who buy votes, are the ones that have more control than the regular folks right out here that elect us. And I can make you this promise. If I'm in Washington, D.C., or when I get to Washington, D.C., you will be my first priority.
We would like to allow for one more question. Please hold it. But if you gentlemen will agree to a 1-minute response, it'll allow you 3 minutes each for your closing statement. So if that's okay, Senator Burns, global climate change. The question is, would you support the U.S. ratifying the Kyoto Accord to an even more aggressive agreement to restrict greenhouse gas emissions?
I will not.